Broadcasting from Millvale Studios, you are listening to Funny Money on the River's Edge Network. I'm your host, Tom Henry, and with us is Tom Benoit producing the show. Tonight, what we want to talk about are two companies that are similar in many ways, and their origins are kind of similar, but they have sort of different situations right now to address. So I want to talk about the first one, and the first one is Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble. It's probably best to start off with William Proctor. William Proctor was born in England in 1801, and there he was raised, and he learned the skill of candle making. All right. There really wasn't too much on his life details, but he was a candle maker, and within 200 miles in Ireland, James Gamble was born in 1803. So only 2 years apart. Gamble was an expert in soap making and how to sell it. All right, so you got a candle maker and a soap maker. Now, both of them immigrated to the United States, like in the 1830s, and it was the city of Cincinnati in particular. They both moved there in pursuit of sisters. In other words, I don't mean nuns. They were leaving to go to Cincinnati to pursue two sisters who were members of the same family. Elizabeth Norris, who became Gamble's wife, was the sister of Proctor's wife, Olivia Norris. And it was there that the girl's father-in-law, Alexander Norris, who first suggested that the two go into business together in 1837. The father-in-law, they were probably saying, hey, what should we do next? We're not making any money. The father-in-law says, why don't you guys, a soap maker and a candle maker, go into business together? And so it turned out that they did, and the business was good. They were pretty good at both of those different things. So soap and candles, also, if you think back to that time, they were really good business. I mean, those were essentials. And back then, there weren't that many essentials, like what we would consider essentials. So, in terms of personal hygiene anyway. So it was a great business. And in 1858, 1859, sales reached $1 million. And so at that time, $1 million, that'd be at least $100 million in today's money. During the Civil War, Procter and Gamble, so now we're talking, 1860s, Procter and Gamble won contracts to supply the Union Army with soap and candles. Imagine that, soap and candles. In addition to increased sales during the war, the military contracts introduced soldiers from all over the country to Procter and Gamble products. Oh, by the way, I want to source this as coming from Wikipedia, in some cases verbatim from Wikipedia, some of the sentences. Also, I'm using the Wall Street Journal website, WSJ.com, for the facts and figures about the company when I get into that. So, Procter and Gamble was supplying the Union Army with soap and candles, and it turns out they needed a lot of soap and candles. There was huge demand, and all the soldiers were like, "Hey, this is pretty decent soap, and candles are good." I guess. I don't know. Okay, I mean, we weren't exposed to candles the same way they were. That was like a regular part of life back then. But I mean, I guess some people are exposed to candles that much, but that's a life choice, people who order like candles from this, uh, like people who start like a pyramid scheme and they like have to sell candles to their friends and neighbors in order to continue the pyramid. Sometimes that happens. People get into candles, but normal person in this day and age is not super into candles. But at that time, the demand was huge because electricity wasn't to be had in those places for the most part. So in the 1880s, so go forward a couple decades, Procter & Gamble began to market a new product, an inexpensive soap that floats in water. Imagine that. Devised by Gamble's son, who was a chemist. Yeah, I think he was the chief chemist, actually. And this was like a revolutionary thing. An inexpensive soap that floats in water. Because most of the people at the time thought, well, no, that would clearly indicate that the fact that it floated in water, that it wasn't made up of very dense, heavy-duty soap. But people are weird and quirky, and to their surprise, this floating soap idea caught on really well, and it was a really big deal. And and they were able to charge less for it because less product was involved, but at the same time they're able to widen their margins too. Now, so unfortunately for William Proctor, he was not able to survive to see the great success of the soap called Ivory. Ivory. I wanted to hold that one back. So that's the soap that floats in water, and so you realize how old Ivory is. Ivory goes back a ways. It was a Civil War soap, almost. Okay, so yeah, because William Proctor was died very shortly after the invention of Ivory. He passed away in 1884, and James Gamble passed 7 short years later. Now, although their kids were directly involved in the business, several of them. William Arnett Proctor, William Proctor's grandson, began a profit-sharing program for the company's workforce in 1887. Now, that was a big deal because that was innovative for back then. It was a completely new thing to have your employees share in the profit that the managers, that the investors make. But he figured that by giving the workers a stake in the company, he thought that they would be less likely to go on strike, and he turned out to be correct in that they did not go on strike, period. The company began to build factories in other locations in the U.S. Because the demand for the products had outgrown the capacity of the Cincinnati facilities. Now, that's a great sign in any business. I don't mind building new facilities because the demand's there. So it means the products are selling. The company's leaders began to diversify its products as well. And in 1911, began producing another blockbuster, something we know today as Crisco. A shortening made of vegetable oil rather than animal fats. As radio became popular in the 20s and 30s, we're getting into big time media now. The company sponsored a number of radio programs. As a result, these shows became commonly known as soap operas. That's the connection. So you can thank Procter & Gamble for all of that. sponsored those shows. Today, P&G produces. All right, so we're going to fast forward a little bit and go to today. All right, today, Procter & Gamble's, and Gamble, singular, produces and sells several supermarket brands. All right, a little thing you might heard of called Crest, Charmin, Braun, like the razors, Bounty, paper towels, Gillette, Head and Shoulders, Pampers, Olay, not as in like Olay, but as in like the skincare product designed for ladies. All right, Old Spice, Oral-B, Herbal Essences, Pantene, Always, Tampax, Tide, and Vicks, like Vicks Vapor Rub. So, all right. So, in other words, it's a broad array of popular store items, okay, that are sort of like household or personal hygiene needs. The PE is $26.87. 26.87 times, which, strikes me right off the bat as a little high for a company like this, typically. 2.93% dividend, that's very good. It's a nice little 3% bonus if you think the stock is going to trade sideways or up. Return on invested capital. Now that's a metric we use to see how efficient the management is at using the capital that they have. For the last 12 months, it was 12.65%. That's not a bad return on invested capital, but it's what I like to look at is return on invested capital compared to what you're paying for it. So look at the PE, 26.87. And I just simply compare, is that greater than or less than the ROIC percent? So is 26 greater than 12? Yes, it is. So that means that the company might be overpriced, depending on some other factors. All right, so the next one I look at is net debt to equity, 30%. Very good. That means the balance sheet is very strong. Okay, earnings expectations. For 2017, they're expecting earnings to be up 8% from 2016. Not bad, but is it worth 26.87 PE? I say yes. All right, but barely. But to be honest, I own Procter & Gamble. I just bought it last week, or maybe this week. Last week I bought it. So I like it. I think that, even though it isn't as value oriented apparently, and that the growth isn't out of off the charts, I should say, out of this world, off the charts. I think that it's a really good momentum play, because I think, so you're playing that 8% is the growth in the earnings, because that's what analysts are expecting. But there's quite a possibility that things go better for them, especially if the general economy goes better. They have a lot of international operations, but they also track the U.S. economy pretty well. So I consider it a buy. Obviously, I bought it myself. So I do like Procter & Gamble. So with that, I'm going to take a short break. And, we're going to have a couple promos, and I'll be right back at you with another company of similar proportions.
Hi, I'm Mike Storr, host of the Awesome Cast, which you can hear right here on River's Edge Radio. We're talking tech, getting geeky every week with people from Pittsburgh in the industry. Go check us out, awesomecast.net, or listen to us right here on River's Edge Radio, Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. after Funny Money.
Hey, this is Matt Geica, your host of Geik's Got Game, 8 a.m. every Friday here on the River's Edge. I'll take a peek behind the sports media curtain, zoom out for the big picture, and as always, obsess over the details of the sports, teams, and players we love or love to hate. It's Geik's Got Game every Friday at 8 a.m. on the River's Edge.
And welcome back. So the second one we're going to talk about tonight is a chief rival of Procter & Gamble. It's Colgate Palmolive. All right, now that seems like, two brand names hopscotch together kind of. But like the fact is that it's been called that for a long time. All right, let's start out with the beginning of Colgate Palmolive. In 1806, devout Baptist English immigrant soap and candle maker William Colgate, he had the two wrapped up in one. It was everything for everybody. Established a starch, soap, and candle factory on Dutch Street in New York City under the name William Colgate and Company. In 1833, he suffered a severe heart attack, stopping his... All right, by the way, I'm reading directly from Wikipedia right here. All right, so this is Wikipedia, and then when I get into the facts and figures, it's also going to be WSJ.com, which is the Wall Street Journal's website, and those are my sources. Okay, so in 1833, he had this big heart attack, and it stopped the business's sales. After a convalescence, he continued with his business. So, okay, this business is kind of doing okay. He's in New York City. He's competing with the cream of the crop. But the fact that because he had a heart attack personally, and then the business stopped selling, that showed how small time it was, how integral he was to the business. Okay, so it obviously hadn't grown to a big business at that point. In the 1840s, the firm began selling individual cakes of soap in uniform weights. Whoa, crazy idea. You mean I could just buy one thing of soap and they all weigh the same? All right, in 1857, Colgate died, and the company was reorganized as Colgate and Company under the management of his devout Baptist son, Samuel Colgate, who did not want to continue the business, but thought it would be the right thing to do. All right, well, I guess I'll do this because it's the right thing to do. In 1872, he introduced Cashmere Bouquet, a perfumed soap. I want some Cashmere Bouquet. I think that would be nice. Little bath. All right. In 1873, I guess they didn't even have showers at this time, really. I don't know. They bathed. All right. So in 1873, the firm introduced its first Colgate toothpaste, an aromatic toothpaste sold in jars. A jar of Colgate. Just dip your brush in and then dip it in again after. All right. In 1896, the company sold the first toothpaste in a tube. Wow. That is so much better. That was a good invention. They definitely get props for that. Okay. Colgate Ribbon Dental Cream, invented by dentist Washington Sheffield. Okay, yeah, was the first actual toothpaste in a tube. Also in 1896, Colgate hired Martin Ittner, and under his direction, founded one of the first applied research labs. By 1908, they initiated mass sales of toothpaste in tubes. I bet that would be a hit, especially if you have a patent on it. Nobody else, everyone's got these jars except for us. William's other son, James Boorman Colgate, sorry. It would be better Bootman, probably. Was a primary trustee of the Colgate University, which had been formerly called Madison University after the president. But Colgate stepped in with some cold hard cash. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, yeah, what does the deceased president have?
Yeah.
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the BJ company was making a soap. I'm sorry, the BJ. It's kind of ridiculous. It's the BJ Johnson Company was making a soap, and I mean that's a ridiculous name. Seriously, the BJ Johnson Company. Is this? Obviously, they didn't have the same kind of colloquialisms that we do today. But that's like almost like some ridiculous spoof on colloquialisms. The B.J. Johnson Company was making a soap entirely of palm oil and olive oil. Or so they said, the B.J. Johnson Company. It's entirely palm oil. You don't know what else is in there.
No.
All right. The formula of which was developed by B.J. Johnson in 1898. The soap was popular enough to rename their company after it, Palmolive. Around the start of the... well, all right, so Palmolive is for the palm oil and olive oil, which are the ingredients. Palmolive. All right, so at the start of the 20th century, it means 1900, folks, Palmolive, which contained both palm and olive oils, was the world's best-selling soap. All right, extensive advertising included the radio programs. Rodeo programs would be cool too. The radio programs, the Palmolive Hour, and Palmolive Beauty Box Theater. Sweet. A Missouri-based soap manufacturer known as Pete Brothers merged with Palmolive to become Palmolive Pete. I am Palmolive Pete. In 1928, Palmolive Pete bought the Colgate Company. All right. Now we're talking, to create the Colgate Palmolive Pete Company. Okay. In 1953, Pete was dropped from the title.
Poor Pete.
I know. Pete was left behind, leaving only Colgate Palmolive Company, the current name. Okay. Colgate Palmolive has long been in competition with Procter & Gamble, the world's largest soap and detergent maker. Procter & Gamble introduced its Tide laundry detergent shortly after World War II, and thousands of consumers turned from Colgate soaps to the new product. Colgate will never forgive them for that. It's been a bitter wound they've been nursing ever since. All right, so today Colgate's brands include Colgate toothpaste, all sorts of things. I use Optic one, there's a Colgate toothpaste that I like. That's like kind of like a whitening one. Anyway, Palmolive, that's like that. It's mostly like dish soap, right? Palmolive, that's mostly what I see it as. Speed Stick, deodorant, obviously. Murphy's Oil Soap. That's popular. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's floor cleaning. Tom's of Maine.
Oh.
That's like drinks, fruit drinks, right?
No.
No?
Tom.
Is it the shoe one?
It's Tom's of Maine is a toothbrush or a toothpaste brand.
A toothpaste brand?
Yes, because I'm a Tom and I use Tom of Maine toothpaste.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
Because
is
they
it
don't
good?
they don't put fluoride in some of their toothpastes.
Oh, yeah. In fact, that was a big thing. Like, I don't know if I read that Procter and Gamble with Crest were the first ones to put fluoride in the toothpaste, and that actually got them an edge, over Colgate. Colgate had the edge when it came out with the tubes. That was a good one. But Crest got it when they said that they used fluoride as an advertising point. So, all in all, okay, all right. Oh, yeah. Oh, they also have Irish Spring soap. Never quite up to Ivory status. Ajax. I've seen that. Both companies have a lot more other brands, a lot of other brands that I did not mention. Oh, but also Colgate Palmolive has Fabuloso.
Oh.
Just wanted to throw that in there as one of their other brands that I've never heard of. Okay, so let's look at this company, Colgate. The PE is 27. They have a 2.12% dividend, which is okay. That's pretty good. All right. Now here's really good. Our return on invested capital. So invested capital includes all of the equity, which means all of the stock that the company sold to the market. And it includes all of the debt that the company has borrowed from banks and other lenders. So that's the capital. Their return on invested capital is almost 40%, 39.82%, which is out of this world. All right. So that's over the last 12 months. P is 27. So 40 compares very favorably to 27. So normally I really like something where the ROIC is greater than the PE. Now here's the problem. The net debt to equity, okay, the problem is they have negative equity. It's a small amount, negative 243 million, and then they have 5.1 billion in debt, net debt. So that makes it much less attractive. Okay, I don't like that balance sheet. I see that the management's doing a great job. Okay, also, expectations are for earnings to go up 7% this year. Very comparable to P&G. And you know what? I can't say that this is necessarily any worse than P&G because it's a matter of, do you want to go more aggressive with a company that's going to have, an aggressive return, possibly, like a 40% return, but you're working with a bad balance sheet? Or do you want to go with a company where you're probably not going to get that kind of return on the capital, but you have a solid balance sheet and you're less likely to, you're going to weather a downturn, So I don't know. Do you want more risk, more reward, or do you want less risk, less reward? That's the question. To me, I took less risk, less reward. I bought P&G, but I invite anyone who wants to go with Colgate Palmolive to do that as well because it looks good to me too. All right, now with that, I'm all out of funny money for the evening, but thank you for listening, and thank you very much to Tom Benoit, our producer. Good night, folks.